And we are live. Welcome everyone. It's 6:30 for our weekly live stream. Today I have a special guest. That's Ryan Lundquist of SacramentoAppraisalBlog.com. Welcome, Ryan.
Hey, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me, Jason. And hi, everyone.
Yeah, wow, we already have 24 people already. Usually we have like 5 people initially. So yeah, welcome, Ryan. I appreciate you taking the time to join me in this live stream today. And we've been talking about doing this collab for I don't know how many months now. We finally put it together. So for anyone who doesn't know who you are, could you briefly explain, who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. My name's Ryan Lundquist. I'm a certified residential appraiser. I've been in business since 2003, and I'm also really a housing analyst. And so I crunch numbers. I just love stats. It's not so much stats, it's more the story that they tell. And so, in a sense, I feel like I get to interpret the market or be a storyteller, and I really, really love that. And in my spare time, I do woodworking.
Yeah, if anyone who follows you on Twitter or LinkedIn, you post your woodworking skills, which is, I would say, just as good as your analytical skills about the housing market.
Well, don't look too carefully. So yeah, thanks though.
Ah, that's too funny. Well, Jennifer, welcome, and Richard Rivera, welcome. Thank you everyone for joining. And Un Unz UNZ asked about the Zillow market or what's going on with the Zillow home purchases. So we'll get to that question. But I kind of want to start off today's live stream because, as the people saw on the thumbnail, we're seeing a slight cool down of the housing market, and we're seeing that in Sacramento, we're seeing that in California, and also across the nation. And so I want to kind of throw some stats out for some people, kind of like a high level what we're looking at right now, and we can kind of talk about, is this like normal for what we expect us during this time of year, or is this like the start of a housing market crash? Right, a lot of people are talking about this. So, according to the National Association of Realtors, home prices have decreased for 2 straight months. This is in July and August. Now the median sold price is like 357,000. And then in California, the California Association of Realtors reported that the median sold price actually decreased in September. They actually just posted that yesterday, and I made a video today, which is going to go live tomorrow regarding that. So it's actually the median sold price is at its lowest level since March of 2021. Meanwhile, housing inventory is up about 30% nationwide when you compare it to January of this year. And then again, forbearances are down 450,000 just in the last 2 weeks alone. And we still have about 1.25 million people in forbearance. And that equates to about 2.4% of all mortgages out there. So a lot of data I just spun at you. So is this saying, Ryan, that our housing market is crashing, or is this something that we see typically this time of year?
That's a great question. And I think, first of all, anytime we see any hint of change, it often sort of, I think a lot of people smell blood and they think, oh my, it's turning and it's happening, bubble 2.0. And there's so many people that are getting clicks based on these sensational ideas. And so it's like the pandemic happened and then, oh, the housing market's going to crash. No, it's not the pandemic. It's forbearance. The forbearance is going to crash the market. No, it's the eviction moratorium letting up, or the foreclosure moratorium, or it's the elimination of single family zoning in California. It's going to crash things. Or Zillow is not in the market anymore flipping homes, and that must be a sign that the peak is here. And so I just say that there's always something to latch onto, but I recommend latch onto actual stats and ask this question: is what we're experiencing normal right now? And the answer is yes. Okay, so we should be seeing a slowing down of real estate. We should be seeing fewer listings. We should be seeing buyers have a little bit more power out there. We should be seeing less multiple offers. We should see prices slough over the next few months in a normal market. And so right now, I would say that the market is trying to figure out a new normal, but it's still on
Mm.
steroids. It's way more aggressive than it should be for September. But I think the good news, especially for buyers, is the market is nowhere near what it was in April and midsummer. It's sort of done its typical thing where it sort of sloughs off. And so all the stats I pull are telling that story, but they're also saying that, hey, the market should be going 50 miles per hour, but it's going about 90 miles per hour right now still.
Yeah, definitely true. Yeah, I 100% agree because, and by the way, Ryan, do you have any, do you care? I mean, you're an appraiser. Do you care at all if home prices go up and home prices go down?
No.
No.
I
Okay.
mean,
So
as a
that's the
homeowner,
reason why.
of course I want them to go up. But yeah, I
Yeah,
don't have
right.
any skin in the game. It doesn't like
Yeah, exactly.
I don't wear rose colored lenses. I'm not here to pitch a narrative. There's nothing I only have value by being objective. And so I'm really, really strict about that.
Yeah, and that's what I love about your stats you provide. There's no bias, underlying bias behind it. So, like, I know when I started my channel early on, people are saying, "Oh, you're saying that home prices are not going to decrease just because you're a realtor," even though my territory is like this small little speck on the U.S. map. But I mean, you get paid the same whether or not the housing market goes down or up. And so, I think that's one reason why we definitely can rely on the stats you provide, which again is sacramentoappraisalblog.com. But I would say too that, my audience is nationwide. Really, we have a lot of people in California, for example, outside of Sacramento. But what we're seeing in Sacramento is not unlike what a lot of cities in the nation are experiencing as well, right? With lack of housing inventory, and then also this slowing trend as well.
Exactly. It's like there's no such thing as a national market. There's all these
Mhm.
submarkets with thousands of markets, but really they're telling a very similar story when I look at stats in other places and, seasonal slowness. And just don't misinterpret that as a crash. Even if you're hungry for a crash, you want to see it, we don't want to look at the stat and, interpret something normal and, sort of see it with a doom and gloom lens.
Yeah, definitely true. I think it's good to point that out because I think that a lot of people, they might have been saving for years and thought, okay, this pandemic hit and then home prices are going to go down. I'm going to realize my dream of buying a house. And I think that a lot of people, their dreams kind of got shattered because, hey, look what happened. Home prices increased greatly. And so some people feel like they're totally priced out of the market. They're never going to buy a house. So I totally feel for people who are in that scenario because I know there's a lot of people who comment on my channel about
Yeah.
that.
Me too. Me too. I definitely have compassion for others. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so it's good. Well, I guess we have some. You sent me some like graphics to share about this housing market cool down or not, but maybe we can answer some questions first, and then maybe we can kind of dive into that here in just a little bit. Let's talk about this first question here. Um, So the Zillow backing out of the market, they're not buying houses anymore. I honestly haven't done a whole lot of research regarding this, but I know that Ryan has done a lot of research. I think you said you posted a blog on your blog today about this. Is that right?
Absolutely. That's what I talked about today. This was sort of the big news that broke. Bloomberg broke the story on Sunday, and I first heard about it on someone tagged me on Twitter, and I was like, wait, what? But yeah, here's the thing. So Zillow states that they are backing off the market and not going to purchase any more homes until January 2022. And I think some people look at that and they interpret that as like, wow, the top of the market must be here, or maybe their model isn't working, they're hemorrhaging money. And, it's probably very true that they're hemorrhaging money, but what they have stated, which I actually think is probably true, is that their systems are overwhelmed. Okay. And what happened is that they've been on a purchasing rampage. It's almost like they wanted to catch up to where Open Door was. Open Door has been sort of the number one iBuyer. And like, say, for instance, in Sacramento, in the region in June, Zillow owned 47 properties. Okay. 4 months later, they owned 372. And so they've had
Wow.
technically 700% growth in what they acquire. Okay. And so my question is, have they added 700% more contractors to do work on their homes? Like, has anyone
Mhm.
tried to find a contractor in this market? Very difficult. Jason, I know you're going to do your remodel. You know all about that, but
Yeah.
that's a struggle. And so I think it makes logical sense for Zillow to be backing up off the market for and maybe try to retool, and yeah, they're losing money, but they can probably afford to lose some. And so something to watch, guys, but I don't think it's something to get sensational about. I think we need to look at this logically. And then, especially for those who say it's the top, look, they stated that they're going to keep purchasing. Open Door is actively purchasing. None of the other iBuyers, Redfin, that I've observed, are backing off the market. And so that's kind of my take in general. But yeah, I wrote a bunch about it today on my blog.
Awesome. I haven't checked that out yet. I didn't know about this, so I'll have to check it out. But it makes sense to me because if they had you said around 34-ish houses that there were that they owned, and now there are like 10 times that amount. I mean, I have like a remodel we're going through, and we ordered flooring for a bathroom. We were not going to remodel, but we're going to be doing that. And we ordered flooring, and it was supposed to arrive 7 days ago, and now it's not going to arrive until like 2 more weeks. And so these delays in getting shipments and stuff, I'm sure Zillow is dealing with that as well. But I would imagine it's more of a labor issue too. If they have so many houses, I mean, how many general contractors and painters and carpet installation guys are available for all those houses? So yeah, I can definitely understand why that would be a slowdown there. So thank you for your question, Uns, and Jennifer Lego. How you doing? Jennifer joins all of our live stream. Really appreciate your support. And thank you everyone for joining too. Gosh, we have 131 people right now. So I really appreciate you guys joining us this evening. Richard Rivera, hello to you, sir. And Jennifer Lego saying, welcome to my channel, Ryan. We've been talking about this for so long, so I'm so glad. And Jeanette, we're doing very well. Ryan, you doing really, really good?
I am doing really good. Had some soup for dinner, have a tea in my hand. Yeah, no complaints.
Nice. Perfect. All right. So we have a question here for Johnny Coe. Ryan, what are your thoughts about FHFA? That's a federal housing finance agency saying desktop appraisers will be in effect 2022. Good question. Thanks for the question, Johnny.
Yeah, thanks, Johnny. And Johnny with one N too. Interesting, intriguing. Never seen that before. I think the pandemic has paved the way for this to happen. During the pandemic, when it first started, there were a lot more desktop products where appraisers were simply focusing on exterior only, or I definitely went with my cell phone and we did, FaceTime with the owner as they went through the house. And by the way, a side note, that was horrible. I walked away at each situation. I'd be in my car doing FaceTime. I felt motion sick because the owner's like walking around and this is the kitchen. And it was awful, guys. Okay. I would not ever want to do that again. But really, I think we've gotten used to a market where we have more robust data. And I think that there's a place for this. Now, I don't think that this is going to be every single appraisal. I haven't read extensively over this yet. I would be really, really shocked if we went to that sort of a system. But I think there's a place for these. We need more of them. And frankly, appraisers have been so overwhelmed with business. I would say that the market is rejoicing in appraisal waivers. Okay. We've needed that product simply to catch up. The refi volume is out of control. Okay. And so that's part of the problem. There's just this huge backlog. But yeah, in short, I think that, we'll see more stuff like this in the future. It makes sense.
Yeah, thanks for that. I know you've been telling me you're very, very busy, which totally makes sense. Orlando, good to see you. Orlando joins us on our live streams often. Appreciate you joining us. Alex is very excited. All right, awesome. And then Stephanie, good evening, everyone. Good evening to you. Thank you, Jennifer. Yeah, it's actually my first collab with an appraiser. Yeah, and I wouldn't have anyone other than Ryan here. Ryan's awesome. Mountain Girl, hello to you. All right, so Jennifer actually has a question. Ryan, what are your top 3 defects found on inspection would you walk away from?
That's maybe an interesting one.
Maybe you can touch on like appraiser, I guess like issues versus like a home inspector issues. I think we should probably differentiate those two.
Yeah, so it's a tough one. I think first and foremost, just remember that you're actually buying the neighborhood. It's never just about the parcel and what's within the parcel lines. And so I would actually back up and just say I would really look at the neighborhood first and foremost. I once bought a house that backed 7-Eleven. And guys, guess how many houses I will ever own again that back 7-Eleven? Okay, yeah. Okay. And so I just want to mention that as a pro tip.
Are you a big fan of Slurpees though, Ryan?
You know what? The Slurpee game was sweet. you get free ones on July 11th each year. And so, man, we were first in line. No.
Ha, ha,
Anyway,
ha.
okay, so top defects, I would say pay really careful attention to anything with the foundation. Foundation damage can be quite extensive, but if you're really concerned, have an expert go out there and make sure that things are okay. I would be really careful. I'm not allowed to say mold. I'm not a mold specialist, but with an unknown blackish substance that's all over the place in the house, you don't want to be so trigger happy to buy something when that substance is reoccurring and it can be harmful. So please get an adequate test if something like that is in place. I would be really careful about some of the bigger systems, especially if you're coming from a place you don't have a lot of money out of pocket, if that happens to be anyone on this channel. And it looks like the air conditioner and the HVAC and the roof are on their last leg. It's tempting to buy something because it technically meets the requirements. The appraiser might say, hey, this roof looks really bad. I need to see a 2-year roof cert. Great, it clears, but what happens in 1 to 2 years when this thing fails? Very, very expensive. And so I'd be careful there. But I don't know. I mean, I just say if there's anything that's really, really expensive, that's where I would run if there were issues with, say, a hillside tumbling, or there was something around the property that was dangerous, any toxic issues. I would absolutely run and say, never buy that house. If the house was formerly a meth house, like I love Breaking Bad, I would never, ever recommend buying a meth house. Bulldoze that sucker. Don't ever, let the allure of real estate and a lower price fool you into doing something like that. So basically, any really big, expensive challenges, any challenges that are huge that might affect your health, that's the running point for me, at least. But if you get something at a discount, if you can, even in this market, great, as long as you have the money out of pocket to take care of the expenses.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very well said. And I would also add to that too is that I would also be very cautious of writing an offer with no inspection contingency. There's some scenarios where that may work. Maybe the seller has a whole bunch of inspections on hand already, and the house is like a year old or something like that. And you have to be super competitive because there's like 10 offers already. But in general, I would say definitely try to hold on to your inspection contingency, and you can get any inspection that you want done at the house basically. And so if you find these big issues, such as foundation problems, are going to be very, very expensive to fix, and be very cautious about moving forward. If you find things like, I don't know, the HVAC is on its last legs or the roof is on its last legs, you always have the opportunity, or say almost always have the opportunity, to ask for a credit from the seller to help pay for, or to pay for those items as well. So don't hold that back for you. If there's something that's just something that's going to be expensive, you always can ask for a credit from the seller. All right. So Maria, thank you for joining. Maria is a longtime subscriber. All right, let's see. Julie has a question. How can all these overpriced houses meet the criteria and appraisal for the listing price or greater than the listing price? That's a really good question, because at least in the Sacramento area, and this is very common across the nation, sellers are getting multiple offers, and they're always pushing the envelope of what the house will appraise for. So I think, Ryan, you're the perfect person to answer this one.
So basically, Julie, it sounds like you're asking, how can it appraise when it gets that high? And I'd say that, like, for instance, in June in the Sacramento region, properties on average in the whole entire region, 2,800 sales on average, they sold 4% above their list price. And that sounds like a really small number, but almost 3,000 properties, the average, that is an insane stat. Okay. And so it's just symptomatic of a really, really lopsided market. Okay. Especially, I think, January through April, May, it was absolutely bonkers. And I think, frankly, in some senses, appraisers are looking at the market. The job of the appraiser is to reflect the market. And sometimes I'm like, I can't disagree with this, because I'm looking at the comps, and over the past, here's something from November, and it's April now, and the market's gone up like $50,000 to $60,000, and I'm going to adjust that comp up. Like, sometimes value is just there because we prove it, statistically. But in other cases, value is absolutely not there. And where a buyer was desperate and offered $50,000 over list price, removed the appraisal contingency. And I understand that. I feel for buyers to have to bring a strong offer, but sometimes the appraiser's looking at that going, there's no support whatsoever for that contract price, right? I think in a lot of cases, like I read a piece today, I think it was Business Insider, and they didn't interview any appraisers at all for the article, but they had one sort of chief appraiser at CoreLogic, and he was basically saying appraisers have been behind the ball. And I get that. I think that did happen in some senses, but if I was interviewed for that article, I would have said, it's not the appraiser's role to ratify the purchase contract and just to rubber stamp it. Like sometimes it's just been so lopsided, there is no support. Or sometimes buyers are so tired and beat up, and they're just going to offer something that's not able to be reasonably supported. So, but I mean, honestly, yeah, the market has been moving well above the list price. Even this past month in September, properties were selling above the list price in the region. Okay, 2 Septembers ago, they were selling 3% below the list price. It's hard to even imagine a market like that right now because we've been so far above what is normal. And so, appraisers just have to consider, what is the market doing right now? What's the difference between when property sold and the market now? And right now, what's the difference? Well, in some areas, maybe the market's a little lower actually, or maybe it's flat. It's not like in January I had a sale and then by March the market was way up here. We might not have that dynamic right now. And so it's all about what is happening in the pendings and the listings. That's what the appraiser is really gauging. I'm looking for that change constantly.
Yeah, that makes
So
sense.
hopefully that helps.
Yeah, definitely. I think. Oh no. Whenever I touch my plug for my webcam, it always like goes out on me. So hold on
No
one
sweat.
second. Yeah.
I can take
What I was
over
gonna
the
say.
show, Jason. Don't worry. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh
But
man.
hey, while you're doing that, if I could just say
Yeah.
one thing, Julie and everyone, is that one thing to remember about the list price is that value is not found in the list price or the contract price. Value is found in the comps. Okay. And so I might list a property for $1. That doesn't mean it's worth $1. You have to look to other comparable sales and pendings and listings to know what that property is worth. And so I just say be really cautious about always thinking that a property can't go below or above list. One of the things that I observed is that I think there were actually a lot of underpriced properties in the first 2 quarters of this year. I know appraisers got a lot of flack for, hey, you're not meeting the contract price, but I think in some senses, maybe the real estate community escaped some scrutiny for maybe there are some properties that were underpriced. And, sometimes that's really the sellers, of course. Sometimes it's a strategy, but it's a real dynamic where an appraiser has to be careful not to judge the list price. Appraiser has to look at the comps. Doesn't matter what the list price is. Show me the comps. That's the key. And hey, Jason, good to have you back.
I mean, more red than I was before, but hey, I'm here. One thing I always have wondered about, maybe you can answer the question for this. So sometimes I see when a house gets listed for sale, let's just say it's 700,000, and then they get it in contract, and just before they get it in contract, the listing agent suddenly changes it to 750,000, which we assume is like what they got it in contract for. And so I don't know why people do that, but I'm imagine they're thinking like, oh, okay, the appraiser is going to write down that the asking price is 750. We're in contract for 750, so we're good. There's going to be no issues with value. But I don't know. Have you been witness to that? Do you know any idea about why someone would do that? And if they do, does that help at all, or does it actually hurt them?
So I can't speak definitively for everyone who does this, but I will say there is this myth roaming through, to and fro throughout the real estate community that this somehow helps appraisers. But I just always remind people the Fannie Mae appraisal form asks appraisers to list the whole entire history of the property. And so in the appraisal report, the appraiser literally enters it listed for 700. Here were all the price changes, and now it's in contract at 750. And so it does zilch for the appraiser who's appraising the property. However, when I'm pulling my comps and agents are doing this in the pending contracts, it's kind of a nod that, hey, here's what it's in contract for. I like to see that. Okay, it's more data, it's more specific. So I appreciate it there, but it literally does nothing for the listing itself on that. Does that make sense,
Makes
Jason?
sense. Absolutely, absolutely. But I agree though. If I'm like listing a house and I see a house that just went pending and they increase the price, and one would assume that probably the price they increase it to is probably the price they're in contract for, which helps us in formulating an appropriate asking price. And for you, it helps for valuing a property that maybe you may be using that one as a comp. So it makes sense. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Gary, thank you for that. And he gives you a big thanks you to Ryan. Woohoo. All right. So Christopher Inc. has a good question. What's your take on the Chinese housing market slowing down and the risk of their biggest developer, Evergrande, defaulting? What's your take on that, Ryan?
I don't have a big take because this isn't my forte. I will say I've never met a buyer once who considered in the United States, should I make a purchase or not? They're not considering Evergrande. And so I would say this isn't a market factor in shaping people's perception of our real estate market. But I will say, obviously, from a global standpoint, if we entered a global recession and something tipped us over the edge and it affected the Chinese housing market and there was this ripple effect, and yeah, that could affect us. I'm hopeful that that's a sensational narrative more than anything. I think we frankly need more time to tell, but I don't know that there's this connection with this one big fund with the worldwide market. I could be wrong. Again, that's not my forte, so take it with a grain of salt, but that's generally what I tend to think.
Yeah, I would say as well. I mean, it's gonna be interesting to see how this all plays out. But I mean, yeah, I haven't met any buyers who are like reluctant to buy because of what's happening in China with Evergrande either. So I think it's a valid point you make here. All right, Misa says Zillow is going out of business, just a matter of time. I guess I would say time will tell. They definitely bought a lot of houses, at least in the Sacramento area, and they make their money on the front end by charging the seller a lofty fee. And so, yeah, we'll have to see what happens with that. And I think we kind of touched about this already, Babo or Babo. What do you think about Zillow stopping by houses? Take a look at Ryan Lundquist's appraisal blog at sacramentoappraisalblog.com. We kind of just went over that just a little bit here, but I'm behind on the comments. We have a lot of comments here. So let me get to some other questions here from Florida. Thank you very much, ASU Harvard. Appreciate you joining us. And Kevin, hey, how you doing? Kevin is a great guy. He's been a longtime subscriber of my channel.
Right on. Hey, Kevin.
Yeah. All right. And Aurora Ramirez, good evening. Good evening to you. Thanks for the question. I'm new here on your YouTube channel. Well, welcome to the family. Can you please tell me a little bit about 203,000 for first time or 203K for first time homeowners? Thank you for your response. Honestly, I do not know a whole lot about this. Ryan, do you?
I do. So first, talk with your loan officer and make sure the loan officer has actually done a 203K before. But basically,
Mm,
what this allows borrowers to do is purchase a home that would not normally meet FHA standards. Okay, it has issues, stuff that clearly needs repair. The roof is shot, or there's no bathrooms, or there's some big stuff going on. What the 203K allows you to do is to roll the repairs into the loan. And so you purchase the property as is, and then you have a contractor set up. Sometimes you can do it yourself, but usually with the contractor. And, the contractor needs to be done by a certain time. And then when all the repairs are done, then you move in. And so Fannie Mae has a home style renovation loan. There's different types of loans that allow you to buy properties that are maybe ugly ducklings, and the 203K is simply an example. And so, I think the struggle is maybe getting an offer accepted with the 203K loan right now. But hey, things can happen. That's where you just have to work with people who understand that loan and they can explain it to others how it works.
yeah. And I would also say to definitely have a general contractor in mind who is available. Because in my personal experience, it's very challenging finding a general contractor who is available and who can do a remodel at a fair price too. Just given how general contractors are so busy right now. All right, let's see. Okay. So M, that's a pretty easy username to remember. My wife and I are moving from San Francisco to northeastern Ohio. That's a big move to buy a house. That's awesome. We would be a first-time homeowner. We have almost unlimited time to find the right house. That's great. Staying with a parents. Any tips? Man, so you are going to be moving from San Francisco to be a first-time home buyer. I would just get really acquainted with the area that you're moving to. So, I mean, that's kind of the reason why I started my YouTube channel, is about what it's like to live in the greater Sacramento area, because it's really hard to figure out what it's like if you're just reading a blog from someone who just visited for the weekend. And so I would just do a lot of research about the different areas. Maybe you're familiar with Ohio already, but if you're not, I would definitely get acquainted with the areas you're looking to buy in. And that's just like by driving around, doing your research. Maybe there's a YouTuber in Ohio, for example. And then also looking at your price range too. You can go on to Redfin, Zillow, looking to see what kind of house you're looking to buy, and then kind of look at the general areas as well. If schools are important to you, if you have kids, for example, then go to greatschools.org and you can see the assigned schools in each of the areas you're looking to buy in. And then, of course, linking up with a great real estate agent and a great loan officer as well. Anything you want to add to that, Ryan?
No, I agree. You covered the bases. Really good tips.
Cool. Right on. All right. SC2620. Would you buy a flipper house? So would I buy a house that is a flip? What about you, Ryan? Would you?
I would. I would, but it depends on the flip. There's some
Mm-hmm.
people that I've learned in my market that do a really piss poor job, lipstick on a pig. I would never in
Yeah.
100 years want to buy a property from them because I've seen their product. I would never want to be associated with it. There's no integrity there. Someone who does a good job, great. It's sort of like, would I be friends with, someone who has a past and they've cleaned up their life? Heck yes. Would I, marry someone or date someone? I am married, by the way, but with someone who used to have a different life, yeah, I can have change in relationships, and same thing with houses. Was that a weird analogy? Maybe. But
You're always good with
yeah.
the analogies. I will have to say that. That's awesome. I would say the same thing. I mean, I've my wife and I have actually looked into a house that was flipped, and we're really interested. And we started doing more digging and find out, okay, well, these things are not really done right, or they kind of ignored this. And we also seen houses, being a real estate agent. And there's a house that was listed in Sacramento for, I think it was like 1.1 million or something like that, which is pretty lofty in our area. Our average home price is around like 500 to 550. And this house was, over $1 million. And we were looking at the cabinets in the bathroom, and they still had the tags from IKEA on them. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
man, like someone's
Oh.
gonna buy $1 million property and the cabinets are made from IKEA. It's like, never would buy a house from this guy. So yeah, I think it depends on the property. Some are done very well, and some are lipstick on a pig, just like you said.
Yeah, and here's a quick pro tip. If you ever, like in Sacramento at least, if something's permitted, then they should make you install smoke alarms and a carbon monoxide alarm. Okay, and so just in your market, wherever you are, be aware of anything that the building department would require. Because to me, when I walk through a property that's been, brand spanking new, just remodeled, but there's no smoke alarms, there's no carbon monoxide, then I think, okay, why wasn't this called out? Chances are that means that it was
Mm,
non-permitted work. And so look for those little tells, because in case that matters. And look, there's some quality work that's not permitted too, but just sort of like, if you start to recognize that there's some corners that are being cut, then in the small ways, like the baseboards don't look good, some of the light fixtures aren't installed right, then, I think, what in the world was cut with the bigger stuff too?
yeah, and that's something too you can rely on your real estate agent too, because whenever I have someone who's interested in a house, I always ask my standard questions: are there any major issues that you're aware of the house? If there's an addition done or a big remodel, I always ask was the work done with permits, and they should be able to tell you, because that's, at least in California, that's one of the questions on the seller disclosures that they have to disclose to you. If there was a remodel done where permits would have been required, but they didn't pull them, that's a check mark they have to disclose in California. All right, school May. Have you ever seen mold growing in the slab concrete? I guess you mean the slab concrete, like a concrete foundation. I'm guessing that's probably what he's talking about. What about that? What do you think? I have not seen that. What about you, Ryan?
Uh, yeah, no, I'm not allowed to say the M word anyway. I usually see an unknown blackish substance. I see that on walls. Growing in the slab concrete, I probably wouldn't even see that because that's not the scope of what I'm looking at. It would be impossible to
Mhm.
see, probably.
Yeah, it would be very challenging. All right, so we have is it Shabbat Real Estate for Life? How will the future high density affordable housing affect the value of suburban neighborhoods when they come to fill in the vacant lots? What's your take on this, Ryan?
So I think, Shivat, I wonder if you're talking about the elimination of single family zoning in California. Is that kind of where you're going? I think, and so I'll take a stab at that. I'll say first, it's a sensational idea that this is going to fundamentally change the market, and maybe it will. But there's a study out of Berkeley that basically showed that this would have maybe the possibility of affecting about 5% of parcels in California, if that effect were even to take place. And so, for those listening, what happened is that you can basically build up to 4 units on a parcel right now, on a single family parcel in throughout the state. But let's just remember that it's very expensive to build. Okay,
Yes, it is.
building an accessory dwelling has been legal for years. You can actually build up to 3 units already in California. You can have the main unit, an accessory dwelling, and a junior accessory dwelling. So already to this point, it's been legal to have these 3 units, but we definitely see more accessory units, but it's really, really costly. A lot of people cannot do this. And I suspect that in some senses, we're going to have that same dynamic where I don't think, many neighbors and, residents and people around are going to be able to take advantage of something like this just from a cost perspective. If people did, would that make a difference in how the neighborhood feels? Sure. Yeah, there'd be a whole lot less parking spots. And that could be an issue if it was applied, overly applied in a market. Now, keep in mind, Minneapolis did away with single family zoning in 2019. And according to Axios, there was an article in 2020 that showed that there were 70 triplexes built as a result of that law. Okay, there were
Wait, an
20 brand
entire
new
state?
ones in the entire in Minneapolis, in the city.
Minneapolis,
Okay, and
sorry.
there's, I
Yeah.
think, something like 425,000 houses in, like, this is a big area. Okay, and so there were 20 brand new triplexes built. Okay, and then there were 50 units that were converted to multifamily, so duplex or triplex. Okay, and so this didn't have a vast effect there. And some people have actually said that it's helped increase value of other single family stock. And so I think we need some time to see what the research really says. But I think there's all these sensational ideas, but so far we look and go, well, the study in Berkeley says probably a pretty limited impact. We can see the case study in Minneapolis hasn't been a great impact there, and so we'll see what happens. But anytime there's the unknown, it can be scary, and we think, how is this going to change the face of my neighborhood? Would I want my neighbor next
Mhm.
door to build a duplex and split off half her lot, and then another duplex is built in the back? I'll be honest and say I don't want that. Okay. Would it destroy me? Probably not. Okay. I think at the end of the day, a lot of people feel frustrated with this, but we have to remember we don't have control over what other people do. Okay, here's the irony, and I'll say that for so long we've been saying we want more housing, we need more housing, and when the law changes like this, and people go, well, not like that, though. Okay, and so I
Not
think
in
it's
my backyard. Yeah.
strangely ironic. Yeah, not it's sort of this battle of not in my backyard versus yes in my backyard, and everyone can duke it out on Twitter. And I think both sides really have some validity and some points, but I think we need time. I don't want to keep repeating myself, but I have a blog post I wrote about that about a month ago. I think it was called "Goodbye Single Family Zoning." If you Google that, it'll come up.
Yeah, well said, Ryan. And I would definitely echo your statement that the cost of building something. So if like my wife and I wanted to split our lot and build a duplex and then another ADU. I mean, I couldn't imagine how much that would cost. It would be hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in the Sacramento area. I mean, you're talking about all new electricity. I mean, a lot goes into building a new building, and so the numbers just don't make any sense. It would cost so much money, and I wouldn't get that back in the appreciation of living on my property, but also in ROI on my money as well. And if I'd only see that this would be a some value to some people who have a large lot if construction prices go down drastically. That's really only see where there might be more people who are going to be splitting their lots and building, because right now construction costs are just absolutely insane. So I don't really see this affecting the market whatsoever. But time will tell, I guess, right? All right. So Emiculus, any updates on the first time homebuyer credit? I haven't heard any updates regarding this. There was a couple proposals that hit that were kind of hit the news waves or newsstands, and but nothing that actually got voted on. And actually, I'm glad about that, because if there's a first-time home buyer credit, in my opinion, it's just going to drive up home buyer demand, especially in the lower range, and that's going to cause home prices to increase. But have you read anything differently, Ryan?
I haven't heard anything about that. I know there was supposed to be a $15,000 Biden credit, but
Yeah.
haven't heard jack about that so far. Frankly, I think there's a lot of other pressing issues right now. I'm guessing that they haven't been able to get to that.
Yeah, I guess so. And Jennifer has, how do you select comps? Is there a formula, Ryan?
I wish there was a formula. That would be so cool and easy, but there's really not. Okay. And so an appraiser should sort of take an apples to apples approach. If I'm appraising an apple, what are other apples worth? My goal is to find those other, representations in a market. And so if I'm appraising a really remodeled house with a pool, I don't want to be comparing it to this fixer next door. Okay, the best indication of value is going to be other remodeled homes with the built-in pool. And so I want to try to use the most similar properties whatsoever. And, a lot of people are like, they have to be within a 1 mile radius. Like, that's not true. In some areas, I mean, we're going to be in a really tight space because this is the market. In a more rural area, you might be going out, 5-10 miles easily for a different property. And so it's just all about where are the boundaries of the neighborhood, and because the market might change when we get outside of those boundaries. And so that's sort of it in a nutshell. Just try to be as similar as possible and capture as many similarities as we can within those comps. They don't have to be the same, but I think similar as best as we can do.
Yeah, and that's can be very challenging, given that there's not as many home sales now, and the lack of housing inventory can be very challenging. So yeah, I can understand that. All right, have a super chat here. Want to show Linda Young. Thank you so much for your donation. $49.99. I think that's my record for all-time high super chat. So Linda, thank you so much. Linda joins us on our live streams every week, and she's really great because she's a loan officer. And so anyone has any questions about any lending questions, then Linda's always there to chime in. So Linda, thank you very much for your super chat. I appreciate it very much. Thank you so much. Golf clap. There you go. All right. So Mr. Blister, will there be a spike in refis soon? What's your take on that, Ryan? If you have an opinion regarding that.
I mean, it just
you probably
depends on
see
what
this.
happens with. It just depends on what happens with mortgage rates. I find that the market, when rates go below 3%, things get absolutely berserk and things go bananas. And so in my mind, the market is very sensitive, and buyers and consumers are very sensitive to rate changes. And so it really comes down to what happens with those, lower rates, more refis. It's kind of, that law of supply and demand in my mind.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of people have refied already, like Flex 2125. See, a lot of people have already refied. I mean, I refied when rates were less than like 2.75%. Now rates are around like 3.2%. So I think there's going to be not as many people refining compared to back when rates were less than 3%. They were less than 3% for such a long period of time. Darlene says big bucks for houses in Riverside County, California. I have heard that the market in Riverside has gone up quite a bit. People are fleeing there too because the affordability is based on my understanding. All right. So Vinesh has a good question here. Do you think that increase in interest rates will ever pull back the home prices or at least stay flat in the Bay Area? Okay, in the Bay Area. Some places have increased more than 35%. Guess first.
So I'll say this. I wish I take off a sign in my office. It says the market is always moving right up there. I made this cool sign for woodworking just because it's so true. The market is always moving. It won't always go up. It won't always go down. It won't always be flat. I mean, there are seasons in life where things are great and seasons where they're not so great. The temperature changes throughout the years. The seasons change, and that happens with real estate prices also. Okay, we can only theoretically go up so far until there's resistance. And I think there's some narratives online, where people are saying we're just going to ride for the next, unprecedented amount of time for the next 30 years. We're just going to go up. And I tend to be more bearish on that. I don't believe it, because that would be pretty wild. Before the pandemic started, we were already starting to slow down. I feel like we've juiced the market with the steroid of half as many listings. We have a supply problem, and then we have mortgage rates at or below 3%. It's just been nuts. And so can rate changes affect the market? Absolutely. Okay. And what we'd want to do is look for any pullback. So far, not any real signs of that at all. Right. And so, but it is tricky. I would say in the Bay Area, there's so much demand, but anything can happen. Prices have gone down in the Bay Area before, and I suspect they will at some point in the future. It's just right now things are chaotic. Okay. And I do feel for Bay Area buyers, especially as properties often go hundreds of thousands over list price. There's this strategy from what I hear talking with Bay Area agents of listing low and generating offers much higher. So that's my general take. I hope that there's, hope out there for, some people, but like the market's not always going to stay the same. I know it feels like it will though.
Yeah, I think that the last statement you said is, I think a lot of people feel that way, that home prices have increased so greatly. A lot of people feel deflated that they're not going to be able to buy a house, and especially in the Bay Area. I mean, home prices there, I think the median home price there is like, over $1.5 million, if I'm not mistaken. But I will say that for anyone who's basically discouraged about how high home prices have gone up, home prices can't go up indefinitely. There's no way that can happen. Otherwise, it'd be affordability issues. But like what Ryan said, there's ebbs and flows of the market. Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down, sometimes it's flat. And it's anyone's guess what's going to happen. In my personal opinion, if we have interest rates increase greatly, and if there's no guarantees regarding this, but if inventory increases greatly as well, then we could have a pullback on home prices. But it's anyone's guess if that's going to happen. And if it does, when. So I would just say, hold tight, and we'll have to see what happens there. Aurora, thank you for all the information. Yeah, thank you for joining. I really appreciate it. And M, thanks for your live stream and knowledge, really honest and quality information. Appreciate you. Thank you so much for that. Orlando Vargas, do you guys ever foresee mortgages dropping between 0.5 to 2%? Are you referring to a 30-year fixed rate mortgage dropping to 0.5 to 2%? If so, I would say I never will foresee that. I would be, I'm not going to say shocked, but it's not going to happen. Do you have an opinion on that, Ryan?
I think that would be so insanely low. I think it would be dangerously low, frankly, because how the market has felt so lopsided over the past year. And a lot of that has to do with mortgage rates. I know some people will say, no, it's all about the millennials coming of age. This is a generational shift. I'm like, well, yeah, and mortgage rates below 3% have totally supercharged the market. You take that away and the market can definitely change. In 2018, rates went up to about 4.5%, slightly higher. It dramatically altered how the market felt. And so we have recent history to remind us how sensitive we are to rate changes. I know that's off topic, but yeah, I mean, I'm not a rate prophet, but if I was a betting man, I would bet and really hope and pray that we would never have rates that low. That would be total chaos. I would refi in a heartbeat, by the way, if that did happen.
And never ever move.
And never move.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, same goes for 100-year mortgages. That sign me up. The payment would be so low. All right. So Eddie M says, "Hey, Jason and Ryan, I'm curious about what you think about the future of real estate in Yuba City." And Eddie, you have a good question. I have never sold a house in Yuba City. I don't have any knowledge whatsoever about the Yuba City market. And Yuba City is what, 45 minutes north of Sacramento, something like that. What about you, Ryan? Any insight about Yuba City?
You know what? Unfortunately, Eddie, I don't appraise there. Years ago, I used to. Housing bubble happened. I really cut back my territory. You'll hear a lot of people in real estate say the same thing. And I really focus on Sac, Placer, YOLO, El Dorado for my stats and for my book of business. So I wish I had something there. A lot of peach farms, though, right? Agriculture. So, go Yuba. But yeah, I wish I had something meaningful to contribute. I don't.
Yeah. All right. So Sako Ndara, I love your channel. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate you. Thank you for sharing your information. Well, thank you for joining. What is your advice on buying with termites? And I think you have a follow-up question. What's your advice on buying a house that have termites and the roof needs to be replaced? Oh, wow. We asked the seller for credit for the roof. So it sounds like you're in contract to buy a house that has termites, which is more or less easily fixable. You can get a quote for that. You can get multiple quotes for that if you wanted to. And if the roof needs to be replaced, then I guess my question to you is, are you asking for a credit for the entire replacement of the roof and just ignoring that there's termites? So I guess it depends on how much termite damage there is. I mean, sometimes like termites can be in like one small little corner of the house and they need to do like just treatment around the house. They basically spray this insecticide like every foot on the exterior of the property. And so they can do that. But if the house is like, has tons of termites throughout the entire house, the house needs to get tented. That's a whole another issue that might have to uncover here. So I would say that it depends on the damage and the quotes you're getting. But I would say you get multiple quotes, make sure you're covered. Anything you want to add to that, Ryan?
I just say if you see sawdust all over the place at a house, be sure that the owner loves woodworking. Okay, and if not, then be concerned and make sure that it's a problem that they can be easily solved. Okay, that again, it goes back to don't forgo those types of inspections. I would never ever buy a house without pest and termite, without a home inspection, and guess what? A sewer inspection. Okay, I replaced my sewer line last year. I say this in every YouTube live I ever do. Forgive me if
Wasn't
you've
that
ever
Christmas
seen me.
time?
It was a Christmas time, man, 2020, and
I remember seeing that.
$14,000, okay? And it was so expensive. There was 80 feet of a line underneath concrete. That's why it was so much. But, we would have discovered an issue during acquisition. Frankly, we still would have bought a house, but don't forgo that stuff is my advice.
Yeah, well said. I mean, the sewer line inspection is $150 in Sacramento. I imagine it's pretty similar in other parts of the area, but you can uncover $14,000 worth of damage, right? So it's definitely an inspection that, especially on an older house, definitely I would recommend getting for sure.
Definitely. Yeah, brand new house, probably not.
Yeah, right. It depends on where the sewer line is, right? So there's houses like newer houses, the sewer line, what do you call it? The clean out is in the driveway. And so it just runs to the street and then goes to the house. And so you would think there's not going to be any root intrusion because there's no trees around. But you look at these older properties that have maybe like 130 feet of a sewer line coming from the house to the back of the lot, for example, that reaches up with the main, and there's like tons of trees. One would assume you're going to have some issues with a sewer line. So that's $150, definitely well spent, in my opinion. All right, SY, should I refi cash out to buy a rental property in this market or should hold on for a while? Any opinion regarding that, Ryan?
I once heard a statement, don't ever should on someone. And I'd apply that here. Should you, shouldn't you? That's a really personal decision. Do the numbers make sense for you? Does it make sense for your lifestyle? Do you want to be a landlord? Are you comfortable with that? Can you afford the mortgage payment? What is the rent like? Where is the duplex located? I think all those questions, I would be asking, because you are going to be the one that's holding it for a number of years. And so if prices go down, hey, that's fine if rents are strong, right? But it's just knowing the market and knowing your finances, I think that's the most important thing.
I 100% agree with you. So yeah, if do you actually want to be a landlord or not? And does the money does it work financially, right? So if are you going to get a positive return on your money there? Linda, thank you for joining. Thanks for the super chat again. Thank you for your valuable information. Thank you for joining us, Linda. Linda joins us every live stream. Really appreciate you, Linda, and everyone here who has joined. All right, we got here. Anthony, I'm 21 years old and have some money saved and still studying. Should I buy now or wait a bit? Since either way, I'm not in a hurry. This is definitely by far the most common question I get is, should I buy now or should I wait? I have some things to say about this, but Ryan, what would you say to Mr. Anthony here?
Jason, you're just putting me on the spot, so I can't.
I can answer first. I can answer.
No, it's all
I can
good.
answer
I like
first.
that. It's all good. Anthony, I would say that you have a whole lot of life ahead of you, and hopefully anyway, right? And I'd just say make sure that you're making an informed purchase. I'm really, really against anyone sort of, jumping in because they have a fear of missing out. It's sort of like Bitcoin is at 60,000 today. I better buy it before it's 100,000. And then it goes down to 20,000. You're like, darn it, and so I think that in real estate, there can be regret. And so it's so important to make decisions out of confidence. And so I would say, if this lines up with your finances, fantastic. Especially if you're in an area where you can get into a market, and I mean, if it actually worked out, you were paying less than, you can rent a property for your mortgage. That's where you can build generational wealth. And I would say there's a lot of talk about generational wealth today, and the only way to build it is to get into the market. And so do the numbers make sense? Only you can answer that question for you. Talk to people around you in your life who love you, who have a vested interest in you. Ask them for wisdom, okay? Take the good stuff, filter out the bad stuff. But I would say too, realize that the first house you buy, which I'm sure you're in touch with, it's going to be in a neighborhood that you're probably not going to die in, okay? And so the starter home is not usually the retirement home. Sometimes people are really frustrated thinking, here's what I can afford in the market right now, and I wish I could get into that other area, but there's a lot of neighborhoods that I can't afford right now, right? I wish I could be in a different area, but, I'm going to have to live within my means. And that's the most important thing in my mind. So hopefully that helps. And Jason, I'd love to hear your take.
Yeah, absolutely. I would basically say the same thing over and over again, is that you have long-term time horizons. I've been saying this ever since I've been a real estate agent of almost 9 years now, is that, whether you're buying this year or 10 years from now, have long-term time horizons. So people reach out to me and say, hey, I want to buy a house. And some of the questions I ask is like, when do you want to move? Or how long do you expect to live in Sacramento, for example? And some people tell me, oh, maybe a year or 2 years. And I just tell them, just rent. Like, we have no idea what the housing market's going to be doing next year or in a few years. And so I always tell people that, Anthony, if you're looking to buy, have long-term time horizons, meaning 7 to 10 plus years where you anticipate that you're not going to be selling the house, because it's anyone's guess whether home prices are going to be decreasing or increasing or remain flat. So that's what I would say to you. Make sure you have a stable job. Also an emergency fund as well. So after you purchase the house, so you also have costs to incur when you buy a house. Just make sure you have an emergency fund in place even after you buy a house. So those are all questions that you can basically answer for yourself, really. But I just take a more conservative route regarding that.
Good advice.
All right.
I agree with you, Jason.
Thank you, Ryan. And by the way, you can totally disagree with me. Any of the advice I'm throwing out here.
I will. The next question, I'm totally, whatever it is, I'm disagreeing with.
Oh man, I just open it up here. I definitely open it up. By the way, we still have 180 people still on the live stream here. I definitely appreciate all you guys joining us on a Tuesday evening. And if you haven't hit the like button, please do so, and follow Ryan on his blog, SacramentoAppraisalBlog.com. All right, Linda has a good question.
Quick, wait, Jason.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. If someone can please update us with the Red Sox game right now too? Just as a side note in the chat, I'd really appreciate that. But anyway, as
Oh
you're
man.
saying, Jason,
Oh yeah, is it? It's the play out. I don't follow baseball or football. I follow like the sports that no one really cares about in the United States, like triathlon and cycling. But it's the playoffs for baseball. Is that right?
that's correct.
Yeah, I think some people are going to unsubscribe from my channel for saying that. So Linda has a question, and honestly, I have no idea about the answer about this. So, what's your opinion on mortgage companies that have a REIT? I am confused. I have no clue about this. What about you, Ryan? Any knowledge about
I
this?
don't have an opinion on that. I don't. There's nothing I know about that.
Yeah, sorry, couldn't help you, Linda. But appreciate your super chat and joining us. All right, let's see here. Eddie M, did we answer your question already about Yuba City? Yuba City, I'm not familiar with the market there. I know you guys concentrate again. Yeah, I'm not familiar with the market in Yuba City, unfortunately, Eddie. I know Ryan's not either. But maybe there's a real estate agent in there that you could reach out to. If you want a real estate agent referral, just reach out to me. I can link you up and so on.
Thank you, D. Thomas. And thank you, Jennifer and Scott. Appreciate you guys.
Do they provide the score?
2-1 Sox, bottom six. You guys are
All right,
awesome.
there
Thank
you
you
go.
sincerely.
All right, we'll try to wrap this one up so Ryan can watch the game here. What's your opinion on investing on a duplex? So I would say this: if you're looking to buy a duplex and actually live in one side and rent out the other, this is a great way to reduce your housing payment, which is called house hacking. If I was, I don't know, in my early 20s, I would definitely be looking to do this. Not to say that you can be 50 years old and do this, but it's a great way to generate some wealth and decrease your housing payment. Or if you're looking just to invest in a duplex and rent out both sides, yeah, it just depends on your situation and what you're looking to do and really your goals. Anything you want to add to that, Ryan, to help
I just
Janet
say
out?
that a duplex, in contrast to a fourplex, can be a good first step because, especially if you're living in one side, then there's less rehab theoretically if a tenant moves out.
Yeah,
Say you own a fourplex and money's tight, you did FHA financing, and then all of a sudden you have two units vacant. I mean that can be a death blow to your finances. So but yeah, hey, and I'll be here. I mean, I'm on your timetable, Jason. So however long, I'm really enjoying this. I would just say keep the questions coming and let's bust out as many of these as we can. But I'll follow
okay,
your
awesome.
lead.
Well, thank you, Ryan. I appreciate that. We've been going on for an hour already. It's quite amazing. But Johnny with a one N has a question for you. Do you believe becoming an appraiser is still a good career choice? How long have you been an appraiser for, Ryan?
Since 2003, so I guess
Oh,
this is
long
about
time.
18 years. So, gosh, you know what? I think it was my appraisal anniversary, like 2 or 3 days ago or something. I usually make some cheesy
Hey.
joke, like my career as a teenager, my career's about to graduate high school. So is it? You know what? It's hard because I think right now appraisers are used in the market. There's a place for appraisers. I do believe that there's a place for appraisers in the future. Also, big data is sort of changing a lot of things. It's really, really hard to become an appraiser. I won't bore you with those details. There's a lot of information online about that. Very, very challenging. But it's tough because it's hard to predict the future. There are two different fields, though. There's lender work for doing appraisals for loans, and private work for divorce and tax purposes, and a lot of private appraisals. And so there's opportunities, I think, in both of those. I really focus on private work. I find a lot more joy in that. Right now, it's really good. Frankly, there aren't enough appraisers. We need more appraisers. And I'd say
Hmm.
I would love to see more diversity in this profession. Okay, absolutely. And so, if you're out there, you're thinking about it, investigate the criteria. Unfortunately, I think, it's not easy to become one, and educational requirements. It's not like becoming a real estate agent where it's pretty easy relatively where you pass a test, right?
Very
Not the same
easy.
thing. So,
Oh,
um,
interesting. I didn't know
so
that.
Yeah, very, very hard. So a lot of coursework to do, and I think the hard part is finding someone to train you. Right now, I think it's still 2,000 hours. It might have been 1,500 hours, where you get your license, and then you have to train under someone for either 1,500 or 2,000 hours. I can't remember what it changed to, and
Wow.
so that's really arduous. We don't see that with a lot of other types of licenses throughout the United States. And so, we wonder why it's difficult to, work as an appraiser, or, you just see the regulation pendulum swung so hard after the housing crash, which, maybe it should have kind of regulate the profession, but I think it's been too much. And we're seeing the byproduct of policy changes right now, and it's very unfortunate. Why can't you get an appraiser there quickly? Well, appraisers are overwhelmed. There's so much volume. And anyway, that's another webinar. Let's not talk about that now. But yes and no, Johnny. It's hard to answer. If you know a local appraiser who's really doing a good job, though, I mean, it's been a really, really good career, especially these, for me. And it's been very lucrative for a lot of appraisers over the past couple of years, especially.
I bet. And then you also have the opportunity to be self-employed, which is, I think a lot of people should strive for that, because you have so much flexibility in your life from that too. But I didn't know actually that
Absolutely.
it's actually more stringent to get your real estate or your appraiser license than a real estate license, which is actually good to
Oh,
hear,
yeah.
because it's like a joke, like a complete joke to get your real estate license. It's like so easy. I think it took me like a half an hour to do this 150 questions when I did my exam. Anyways, it's a joke. Let's see. Marahan John. I'm going to butcher your name. I'm so sorry. Hello from Boulder and Longmont. I haven't heard of Longmont, Colorado. I came very, very close to going to University of Colorado at Boulder back in the day. Any updates on supply demand updates in Colorado? And honestly, I have no idea what the housing market's like in Colorado. And I assume, Ryan, you probably have the same answer as well.
That's a safe assumption.
Yeah. Sorry, couldn't help you with that. But yeah, maybe reach out to a local real estate agent. And also, by the way, too, if you're living in any town, USA, anywhere in the United States, you can just simply Google your city and then say it's in Boulder. Say Boulder Association of Realtors. And sometimes there's a local association and they post housing market stats for the area you're looking in, and they make that public. So in Sacramento, they do that. And so maybe in Boulder, they do that as well. So you can get an idea about what's going on in the market there. Or you can go on to Zillow or Redfin, whatnot. All right. So Michael B, good thing I just did a job in Houston making $20,000 more. California, poor baby. That's awesome. I'm sure your housing payment, what I would assume your housing payment went down and you're making more money. Good on you, mate. That's awesome. Shaka Khan, with Zillow, Redfin, and Open Door, do you see a strong future for traditional agents? That's a good question. I really thought about that. With Zillow, Redfin, Open Door, do you see a strong future for traditional agents? Yeah, I don't know why that would cause a stronger future, because we have iBuyers in the area. Do you have an opinion regarding this? I don't really. I'm kind of like stumped on this one.
So I think the iBuyer model, it's something new, and it's something that is frankly trying to change the way that real estate is sold. It's sort of like the Amazon, I can never say that, Amazonization of real estate. And so whether they're successful or not, we'll see. But I don't think anyone expects for the iBuyer model to be everything. Just as Amazon is not everything, there are still stores, right? I still bought my groceries, down the street. Wait, but Amazon did deliver it. I'm just kidding. And so I think that we have to concede that there's going to be different models in real estate. We've always had that help you sell real estate, for sale by owner. But this is like that on steroids, and this is clearly gaining more market share right now. But for perspective, right now, about 6% of all listings in the Sacramento region are from iBuyers. So 94% of the market is not that. And so it's hard to say what the balance is going to be eventually, but I do think that this model is going to challenge the traditional model to have
Mhm.
to accept technology, to be efficient, to meet consumers in different ways, and to maybe manage some expectations that grow, right? Everyone here probably has Netflix, but there was a time when we were all, watching TV live. And so the world changes. I don't know that this is, the model to usurp all models. And so, time will tell, but I think that there's going to still be a traditional real estate agent, and we'll see how it all shakes out.
Yeah, I mean, well said. I really can't add anything to that. I agree with you 100%, Ryan. So thank you for both for your incredible content. Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate you and everyone else here is on the live stream. Still have 180 people strong. I love it. So what do you think
Guys,
about
I'm
Fairfield,
loving it.
California?
Keep it coming. Yeah.
We got a lot of questions here. It's awesome. So, what do you think about Fairfield, California, mainly the Cordelia area, just where the 80? Yeah, and honestly, I am in the Sacramento market. My territory per se is like basically like a half an hour, 40-minute drive from Sacramento, and I don't even go to Davis really. So, yeah, I'm really not familiar with the Fairfield market, and I'm assuming that Ryan, you probably have the same answer too.
I don't have many thoughts. Back in the day, I did some appraisals there. I used to appraise in
Mm,
Fairfield all the time. I don't anymore. But I'd say, proximity to the Bay Area, especially, it's a much easier commute than Sacramento, and it's going to make sense for a lot of people. If I'm not mistaken, Cordelia is pretty small, right? And so, not a whole lot going in there. But if I'm not mistaken, right at the base of the hills in Fairfield, there's some really, really sweet properties up in the hills, really custom stuff too.
yeah, I agree, and I think that probably Fairfield with the work at home arrangements, where some people have to go to San Francisco, for example, maybe like once a week or once a month. We'll start seeing these outlying areas really develop quite a bit, and we're seeing that in Sacramento, of course, as well. So Darlene, she had a home 15 years ago that's now worth 685,000 in Winnetka, California. I'm not familiar with that city. Are you familiar with that city, Ryan? I haven't heard of it.
No, no.
No, all right. It's it built in 1955, I assume. Hard to be, I believe, brand new. It was only $12,000. Holy cow, that's a pretty good return on your investment right there. If you still own it.
I mean, it's
um,
okay. It's okay.
yeah, and Anthony likes the conservative route as well. Yeah, he was asked a question about should I buy now or should I wait. You probably saw this, Ryan. Boston 2, Houston 1.
Yes, thank you
Some more
guys.
stats.
Thank you so much.
Jennifer 2-1. Um, all right, so this is from Chuck again. What do you think about the Kawak brothers? I don't know if I'm pronouncing their names right. They have a YouTube channel with over 100,000 subscribers, promoting replacing your first mortgage with a HELOC. I have not
Mm.
heard that. I don't understand that. So maybe you mean like you can't get a second mortgage and then just pay off your first mortgage. It wouldn't make sense to do that anyways. So maybe you're referring to getting a HELOC and then maybe buying another property. I'm not too sure if I'm following you, Chuck. So maybe send a follow-up comment. Um, all right. Getting to some of these questions here. So we have HB. What's your opinion about the Las Vegas market? As reports show that there was 233% price increase during the last 5 years, even though some areas like Austin, Los Angeles Bay Area, only 100 to 105%. Yeah, and again, I'm not familiar with the market there in Vegas, and if that's true, 233% in 5 years is astounding. Any idea what it's like in the Sacramento region over the last 5 years offhand, Ryan?
Last 5 years, yeah. I mean, it's nowhere near 100%. No way. I mean, it's probably 60 something percent. What probably 5 years ago, 300,000 something,
Yeah,
550. I mean,
yeah, that
so
makes
I
sense.
mean, six 2/3. But here's the thing. I would, when assessing any market, I would ask, does price growth make sense for the economy here and for the wages. And keep in mind, sometimes percentages, we have to be really, really careful of them. Okay. I don't know if you guys have heard the news about foreclosures are on the rise. And one of the dangers is that foreclosures are basically at nothing right now. And so any uptick, we can look and go from a percentage standpoint, they're up 37% and the market's crashing. But it's sort of like if I paid my kid $1 for allowance, my teenager would not be happy with me. But if I doubled his allowance and I said, you are going to earn $2 now per week, he could go around and saying, check it out, guys. I'm making 100% more than I was last week. Woo! But the issue is he's really only making $1 more. And with my random analogy, here's the thing. If Las Vegas prices were really, really low and then they went up, it's possible that you might have this weird percentage thing where if you start out really small, you have this huge percentage difference. There's a neighborhood in Sacramento called Oak Park where the median price was about $50,000. Amazing. At the bottom of the market in 2012. And right now it's increased by about, $300,000 on top of that. And so from a percentage standpoint, it's like insane growth, but you got to be really careful with percentages. Look for the dollar amount also. So hopefully that wasn't too nerdy, but that's kind of what I would do with the percentage. Just make sure that it's not so inflated because that first number was so low.
So low. Yeah, I 100% agree with you. The dollar amount, I would also want to know the 233%. Yeah, what was the actual dollar amount increase? It's a very valid response there. Jennifer Lego, thanks, Jason. Please ask Ryan to come back. Ryan, will you come back?
I will. Yeah, heck yeah. And thanks, Jennifer. I appreciate it. So, and this isn't my YouTube video, but guys, if you're liking this content, give us a thumbs up.
Yeah, there you
right?
go. Exactly. Yeah.
Aren't you supposed
And
to
Ryan,
do that? So I'm not a guru.
Yeah, you are supposed to do that. You haven't posted a video on your YouTube channel in a while. I noticed it's been a couple of months. You post a lot on Twitter and LinkedIn and also in your blog as well. So I'd love to have you making another video here soon.
I will.
Not to put you on the spot.
Okay, guys, I have a channel. I got sick a little more than a year ago, and it was a real wake-up call for me in a lot of ways. I spent a week in the hospital, and you know what? I just decided to back off of YouTube. I decided I was going to start saying no to a lot of presentations, and I needed to sort of take control of my life, and I really have. But I do have a video coming out about bubble stuff. I get so many questions about this, so hopefully in the next couple weeks or so. I don't know. I'm so busy, but that's going to be the next one whenever it is.
Yeah, it is pretty time consuming to make a video. And there's so much that goes on the back end that people don't see that it can be very time consuming trying to figure out what video topic to make and then actually formulating the comment, posting it, editing it. I mean, gosh, it can be very, very time consuming. But glad, Ryan, you're feeling better though, man. Really, really happy for you about that. Yeah. Anthony said that he said 20% down for a down payment. This is, should I buy now? I had that question. He has 20% down. He's looking at saving some money in the case of emergency. Yeah, thank you for your advice. Appreciate you. Yeah, I hope that was valid advice for you. Hope that helps out. Linda says we need an appraiser badly.
I know.
Yeah, it's very important to have access to great appraisers. That's for sure. All right, here's a good question. So my home is listed with the county as a 4.3, but it's really a 5.3. Should I correct this in preparation for a refi, and will I be hit with higher taxes? My question for you is that 5-bedroom is an addition that's not in the tax records, or are you talking about that the footprint's exactly the same as on tax records, and we're just looking at like a office that was converted to a bedroom? That'd be my question for you. What would you have to say for this gentleman?
So I would say that sometimes bedroom count is a bit overstated, the value. And so first of all, an appraiser who goes out to the property is going to recognize whether it's 4 bedrooms or 5 bedrooms. And it could very well be that there was this optional den and, maybe, last minute, it actually was a bedroom instead of a den when the property was built, or was going to be an office and now it's a bedroom. And so there could be a lot of different reasons for it. I honestly wouldn't overthink it, unless for some reasons your market has like this 5-bedroom fetish where it says I will only pay top dollar for 5, which I very much doubt. Don't overthink it, but the appraiser's going to look past this, tell the story, whatever it is there, and the appraiser should be able to correctly say, yes, this is 5 bedrooms. I would say if you're on a septic tank, though, be really careful, because if you're zoned or if the septic tank is fit for 4 bedrooms and you have 5 bedrooms, that's an issue. And you need to really be in tune with the guidelines and what the septic tank requires or can handle, because that could end very badly for the buyer and maybe for you with litigation. Okay. And will you be hit with higher taxes? I think that all comes down to the assessor's algorithm. I am not a huge fan of sharing information with the assessor where possible, just in case of situations like this. I personally would not try to, share that just in case their algorithm favors 5 bedrooms, because in the real market, it's not going to be a big deal, most likely. Now, if your square footage was incorrect and if I was gonna list my home, I would probably correct that. I actually, my house is actually 200 square feet larger than it says on the tax roll. It was permitted. I have the permits for that in my garage. Like, I could show the appraiser. I don't know. I mean, maybe I would change that if I was going to actually list it so it says what it actually is. But man, I wouldn't worry about bedroom count, at least for that. If it was a 2 versus 3 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms all the way. I want tax records to say 3, 4 to 5. I think a lot of buyers are going to be like, meh, I'll buy it if it's 4. I'll buy it if it's 5. Let's not overthink it unless it's the Bay Area and everyone and their mom is like renting out, Cracker Jack boxes for thousands of dollars, then maybe it's an issue.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, 2-bedroom to a 3-bedroom, there's a lot of value there for sure. So Ryan Moyer says, Ryan has been busy with Walktober. Tell us about Walktober. What the heck is that?
So before October, I posted on Facebook and I said, "Hey guys," and Ryan, that's so cool. You mentioned that. I said, "Hey guys, I'm going to be walking every single day in October, because normally what happens during this time of year is that I fall into a bad rhythm of eating, and I have months of just horrible health." And then I make a New Year's resolution. But this is about me going, I want to seize, every single day, have a certain amount that I'm going to walk. Would anyone like to do this? And I don't know, it turned out to where we have this little group going on, and we're posting in this group on Facebook, and we had our first live walk last weekend. We're going to do another one in a couple weeks, and it's just been really fun. So I walk all the time, though. That's my thing. That's my main form of exercise. I have become a real walker over the past almost year and a half. I love it, love it. So that's what it is.
Yeah, super important to get your exercise. And this is coming from someone who doesn't exercise really anymore. I really need to do that. I mean, definitely good for the mind, body, and soul, to say the least. I'm just a washed up old triathlete now. VR says, any idea about Nashville, Tennessee real estate market, please? Oh man, if I knew about the Nashville, Tennessee market, I would definitely tell you. But yeah, just outside my area of expertise, I have more focus on the nation as a whole, California as a whole, and then the greater Sacramento area. And I know Ryan focuses more on like the Sacramento region. So sorry we aren't able to help you out there. But again, just Google National Association of Realtors. You might be able to find some information if your local association of realtors posts public housing market stats for you. All right. Da-da-da. And Eddie M says, thanks guys for taking the time to help us and be able to feel confident on what decision we make. Absolutely. I mean, that's kind of like the reason why I post videos now, is that I'm just giving people the information. They can make their more informed decision about whether they should buy or sell a house. I'm not telling anyone they should do that. They basically can take my information and decide what they want to do with it. So yeah, I'm glad that's useful. All right. And then Coinster says, low inventory and high demand will still be with us after Christmas. Don't expect a downturn anytime soon. Today's prices will look like bargains a year from now. Screenshot of this. Yeah, I would say it's very, very hard to predict what the market's going to do. In my opinion, what I'm personally watching is housing inventory. And then actually more importantly, really, is mortgage interest rates. Those have been increasing about, I think it was 0.5% in the last 3 months. We're still at very, very low levels. Don't get me wrong. But if they continue to increase to greatly, that could affect the market. Anything you want to add to that, Ryan?
Nah, I don't want to beat the dead horse with that. I think you got it.
Okay. And Linda did a screenshot. So check in again, Coinster, in a year. We'll see. We'll see if your prediction was correct. We'll see. All right. Steve A, regarding Sacramento County, how strong are infill and spec builds right now? I guess I don't know what you mean by strong. Maybe you can follow up with a question regarding that. All right. So then Hayato says, hey, if an appraisal came back significantly higher than asking, that'd be awesome if you're the buyer. Would it make more sense to put down 20% of asking price for the loan or put small percentage and then refinance later? I would say like if you're looking at like refinancing later, there's no guarantees that rates are going to come back to these very, very low levels now. So it's kind of like a risk there. Anything you want to add regarding this, Ryan?
Well, I would say that having equity gives you power, and there's nothing wrong with flexing power and taking advantage of opportunities. I would say this is where you want to talk it over with your loan officer and see what makes financial sense. I would try as much as possible to avoid paying mortgage insurance. But there's nothing wrong with putting 10% down and then getting a 10 loan, an 80 loan, and then maybe aggressively pay off that other 10 loan first. You could do that, especially depending on price range, cut your lifestyle and knock that out real quick with money being so cheap to borrow right now. I find that that's why we're actually seeing in my market profoundly fewer all cash buyers in recent years, just because a lot of people are using conventional financing rather than parking their cash in real estate because they can make it work in other places. So again, it's lifestyle, but I would absolutely talk with your loan officer. There's nothing wrong with doing something that's not, traditional 20% down. I know Dave Ramsey would hate me saying that, but you know what? I don't care what he says. Now, seriously though, yeah, I know. Avoid the PMI where possible. But if you, for a season, take out that 10%, aggressively pay that off, then you shouldn't have mortgage insurance after that. There's nothing wrong with that. So, no sweat, especially if it's a high-priced area. This is it's easier to do, 20% down in a place with really, really low prices, but not so easy in California.
Yeah, that's true. When I bought my house, I was looking at trying to leverage my money as much as possible because we bought a house that needs a lot of work, and so I figured, okay, well, I want to try to get the biggest loan I can that's still within my complete comfort zone of my payment wise, because I want to have more cash on hand in order to use that for the remodel. And so that's what I decided to do because interest rates are so low. I think my rate right now is 2.6 or something like that. And so it just makes more sense for me to hold on to more money and then have a larger loan because I can use that to remodel my house. And some people can leverage that and then invest in the stock market, for example.
Yeah, put it
but yeah,
into a
thanks for your
retirement
question.
account. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. You can put it in some mutual funds. Any advice for big moves across country? I have actually never done a big move across the country as an adult. So I don't have any advice regarding that. What about you, Ryan? He has a lot of stuff.
I've
He or
not
she.
personally done that. I did move from Southern California originally to Sacramento, but that was 20 or so years ago. I would say join a Facebook group of wherever you're going to move to and see what type of services exist. See who's advertising there. There's so many realtors like move to Idaho or get out of California. Like that's a real popular one, right? And I guarantee there's going to be try to connect with a real estate agent because typically a good agent has to have knowledge of the local market. If there are people moving from out of the market, they're going to know they're going to have a resource for you. And so take advantage of that person's social capital and what they know, and maybe you'll even work with them. And thanks, Jennifer. Really appreciate the score update, and very cool. And look at that, 411. All right,
411. I like it. She's giving us the 411, Ryan, or giving you the 411. Jennifer Lego, thank you for the super chat.
I didn't even recognize that. That's pretty sweet. Okay, there you go.
That's what I'm guessing. But yeah, thank you, Jennifer, for the super chat and then keeping Ryan. You're a Red Sox fan, Ryan, huh?
I'm a Giants fan who is less interested in the playoffs now, but I grew up loving Wade Boggs and the Red Sox, and when I used to really collect baseball cards in the late 80s.
Yeah,
And so
right.
I definitely like the Red Sox. I'm absolutely voting for them now, but I would absolutely be for the Giants if the Giants were still in it, but they're not.
I wish they were in it too.
Or
I'm not a baseball fan, but hey, I remember Wade Boggs. I remember having his baseball cards. And funny enough, we're packing our stuff out of our house. We're going through some old stuff, and I found my old baseball cards, which are probably worth like nothing. But back in the day, during elementary school, you're like, oh man, I'm going to invest this, and I'm going to save it, and I'm going to sell it later. And then look what happened. What are you going to do? I should invest in the stock market. um, all right, so we have some last minute questions here. If anyone has any other questions, please post them. Looks like we're at the end of them here. All right, let's see here. Turk East Bay, Roseville versus Elk Grove. Which town has better potential? I mean, gosh, it really depends on what you're talking about. Potential, home price appreciation, potential for livability. There's a wide range of things we can kind of talk about there. Definitely different areas, different counties, even. So I'd want to know like more information about that. All right. Let's see here. I'm going
what's up, Matt?
to do that. There you go. What's up, Matt, the mortgage guy? Hey, Matt, how you doing? Did a collab with Matt once or twice. Great to see you in the collab. How you doing, Matt? Good to see you. All right. Anyone else has any last minute questions? If not, we'll kind of wrap this up. Ryan, thank you so much for joining me. This is so much fun. I really enjoyed you having on here. You provide so much value information. I really appreciate you. And is there anything that you want to add? And then also, I want to say too is that where can people find you if they want to contact you or find your housing market data?
Yeah, no, and thanks, Jason. And guys, thanks for all the questions. I loved doing this. If I'm ever asked again, I will absolutely say yes. This is so much more fun than typing appraisal reports, too. So thanks for the break in life. But I just say, remember in real estate that most people don't make real estate decisions based on geeky metrics. I think we often look at data, then we're like, oh my gosh, here's where the stats are moving, and here's what's happening. And I'm not underestimating the power of, is the market going to turn? Like, that's a really big question, but I would say back up and realize that your lifestyle is probably the number one motivator for what you're doing in real estate. And so I would just say give respect to your lifestyle. I think we don't give enough respect to the idea that here's where I need to be because of my family situation. Here's where I need to be because the pandemic is causing me to want to be in an outlying area, or I need to be closer to family, or need to get the kids in this school district. Or, I mean, that's so important. And it's not always about the geeky metrics. So I don't want to beat the dead horse with that, but I find that it's often underemphasized in real estate circles. I say that as a data guy, that it's not always about the stats. So, and people, you guys can find me at sacramentoappraisalblog.com. I do write heavily about the Sacramento market, but I try to keep it general enough to be interesting to anyone who's interested in real estate. I love following people who are talking about their market with authority, with stats, because then I'm going, maybe there's some takeaways for me where I go, gosh, that is just like what's going on in Sacramento. My friend, when I'm, following her in Fort Worth, or, a friend in Manhattan or Birmingham, I just find a lot of value there. So, and thanks, Matt.
Good.
Last chance to smash the like button.
Yeah, and Chris S says that we missed your question. Sorry, I did miss your question, but Evergrande, we kind of talked about that at the beginning of the video. It's really hard to know whether or not that's going to affect our housing market in the United States or not. Time will tell. And yeah, if we had a crystal ball, we definitely would tell you. But yeah, Ryan, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it. And anyone who's watching, definitely check out his blog, sacramentoappraisalblog.com. And then maybe a new YouTube video here coming up soon. So looking forward to watching that. So anyone who got any value out of this video, please hit the like button, and we'll see you on the next video. Thank you so much, Ryan. And thank you everyone for joining us for, an hour and a half on a Tuesday night. Thank you, everyone. And have a
Thanks,
good evening.
guys.
Thanks again.
Thanks, Jason.